Welcome back everybody. This video is like a follow-on to the last one really, on the 4040 Pro CNC. It's not that difficult to perform. You've just got to be extremely careful with it, but it is another feature of using an overhead router. It's what they call a jig and pin. Now a lot of people won't understand what I mean out there, and no disrespect to anybody, unless you've actually used a jig and pin, you wouldn't. What it is the ability to make a pattern on a piece of timber, flat timber. Normally it's either plywood or MDF, and you'd make that pattern exactly the size and shape and cutouts and grooves in it that you wanted, okay, that you needed for that project. And then what you do is you use that as the base, okay. You then have on the base of your machine a pin. Now the pin normally corresponds to the size of the cutter. Now I can only go to a maximum of 6mm really on this with this motor, but you're not limited to the size if you've got a router in, because you know, depending which one you've got, you might get 8mm, you might get slightly bigger. I don't think you might get 10mm. I don't know, because I don't use a router on here. My highest I go on my Pro machine is a 1/4 inch, because it's on here R11 collet. But I go up to, well, I have actually an 8mm collet. I can actually put an 8mm in. But the pin is screwed into your baseboard, okay, or however you choose to have it. On more fixed machines, purpose made ones, they'll have a set of pins that are all the same, they're reversible normally, and the ones I used to use were made out of like made out of 12mm or 13mm steel, and on the end was turned, it'd been turned on a lathe, either 8mm, 6mm, half inch. They were turned in different ones so you could flick them over, and you normally have a clamping system on the outside of the bed so that you actually insert your I have one in here because my father made me one, God rest his soul, because he was the engineer, and he made me one for the overhead router that I used on the DeWalt crosscut saw. That was fixed underneath of the table, and all I had to do was a toggle bolt on the outside. I used to just turn it and take the pin out, turn the pin over, and use whichever cutter corresponded to that pin. Okay, it'll be all come apparent when I show you on the machine. And what this does is enable you then to follow that pattern that's underneath. You place it over the pin. You're restricted on the 4040 because to put clamps down onto the machine, you'd have to make sure you've got enough clearance depending on the thickness of your baseboard and the thickness of everything else. It all is retrospective to the actual height of the gantry, the x-axis, so you're limited, but it is a feature that you can do. And then you would put some toggle clamps down, put your normally set up a little corner fence type thing so you can put your material into it. It sits so you can do repetition work, so you sit it in to the corner angle however you want to do it, and then you flick your toggle bolts and clamp it down, okay. Then you would place your jig on the first part of the pattern that you want to do on to your pin, okay. And then what you would do is, on a normal and a fixed head router where the head moves down, and it's obviously a more powerful machine, you would plunge your router in and then move it on the pin, okay. But you normally take it in steps, because if you're trying to take too much off in one go, that's when your problems start, because you are holding this jig, okay. You've got to keep it flat on the surface, and you've got to work towards the cut, not away from it, towards the cut, okay. So as I say, it'll be all come apparent. And once you've done this, then and you've cut your first cut out, or you rebate, or whatever you're going to do, is then you would actually take your machine up, and which CNC you can do because you take it back to 0. You're already using the offline controller to move it down the increments you need to the depth you need, because you'll have zeroed off, and then you lift it back up to 0, 0, then you move it onto the next marker to where you want another cutout or another groove or whatever you're going to do, or a cut through, and then what you do is you would take it down in increments again until you've worked through, and you do that till all the pattern's done. Once you've done that, then if your patterns, obviously you might have an outer shape as well that you want to do, so then what you would do is once you've cut those patterns out, your inner's done. You cannot cut the outer pattern, because when you try and cut the outer pattern, your clamps and everything are going to get in the way. You can't do that. Okay, so then what you do is you swap over, you make a pattern for the outer shape of your material that you've just cut, and then you place that on that, and then it's clamped through the grooves. It's become apparent you'll do a hold down system within the grooves and the holes or the profiles that you've cut within the pattern. Okay, and then once you've done that, then you'd follow round on the pin, which would then give you, because your pattern's exact, it will give you the shape on your or the profile on your timber that you want in to finish on. Okay, it sounds complicated. It isn't, trust me, it isn't complicated whatsoever. The hardest thing is to make the pattern that you want and make it exact. I will show a video. I will do a video actually to show you an item that I made last year, and I made it for myself because I didn't want one, and it was a miniature writing bureau, but it's a miniature that holds the inkwell and hand turn pens. I will show you that in a separate video, just to show, and all this was done on a jig and pin. Okay, and it was done on the overhead route of the actual DeWalt saw that I had, so it's no different to this really. So it will show what you can do. I did raised panels, the little doors, I did the inkwell cutouts. The only thing I didn't do was the pens, because I turned the pens by hand on the lathe. Okay, which is extremely difficult because they're so fine, and it's a big lathe that I've got, wood lathe. But it will become apparent to what you can utilize it for. So what I'll do now is I'll take you over to the machine and I'll show you the simple setup, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out, just do a cut out to show you how it does on a piece of scrap material. Okay, that's all it is. So I'll take you over to the machine and I'll show you how we set it up. Right, here we are at the machine. Now this is the pin. Okay, can you all see that? It's just a simple, you can make it a 6mm, because the actual cutouts, the actual hold down inserts on the board that originally came with the baseboard that came with the 4040 has 6mm inserts in. So because I'm utilizing that, that's what I have to make, and it's just a 6mm bolt with enough so that it threads, so it goes into it and holds tight, but it doesn't come through, because otherwise it'll push this down and this up. Okay, so you make sure that you tighten just on the actual insert, and then you cut it off, and it wants to be, you need about 1/4 inch, safely 1/4 inch up from the board that sticks out. Okay, now that's exactly 6mm, so that maxes exactly 6mm there. Okay, on that cutter. Okay, So I know that's it. Now the secret is you've got to get that dead centre. So if you can see there's a centre punch exactly in the centre, and it's been done on a centre finder, so it's exactly in the centre. Can you see that? So that then screws into here. Give it a little tighten. Okay, we have a V-bit in, as you can see. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we'll move this over and then get it closer so that we know where we are. Lower the Z-axis down, and that V-bit will be the centre of that centre punch. Then we'll lift the Z-axis up, replace it with the 6mm cutter, and then we know where we start from there, that we're exactly over. No matter how you go around, that pin is level with the cutting circumference. Okay, I hope you all understand that. So our next step is we'll jog the machine over and get it set up for the centre. Now what we're going to do is the MPG, we're going to start moving the Y and X axis over, and then lower the Z. Okay, just get it roughly in place. So we'll move the X axis over, which is plus, roughly in line, and then move the Y roughly, and then drop the Z down. Now you might find out that if you're like this is going to bottom out, as you can see, if you're looking at that, then what you would have to do then is, as I am going to have to do, is drop the Z-axis down on the studs. Okay, so that's the next step. I'll drop that down. Right, here we are. I've now moved the Z-axis frame down onto the I've dropped the Z-axis down, but it's gone up on the bolt holes. Okay, there's 4. Drop them down, so I've got it low. Okay, and then what I've done is I've centered the actual V-bit on the center punch mark of the center of the pin. Okay, what we're going to do now is take the Z-axis up, so that will enable me to change the cutter. Okay, I'll now change the cutter. Take that cutter out, put the new one in. There we are, cut it in. Just give it a nip up. Okay, that's the cutter changed. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to get our pattern and the material that's on, and I'll show you that. And then so we know now that that cutter, no matter which way you go against that pin there, it will come up against one of those cutting faces or cutters edges. Okay, right, this is here is the actual shape of the fence that I actually created for the to make it into an overhead router. Okay, that's just a sample old scrap piece of timber, and that is what we're going to cut out. Okay, that is the cut out, that is the shape of it underneath. Okay, you can see that is what we are going to create on that surface. So first thing you do is pop it over your pin, make sure that it's there, put it to the center of your material, and you can actually move your cutter down so it's just cutting here and then move it up, but what I do is I always touch off. Okay, so you go to the offline controller, go back to your probe touch off with the probe. Okay. And when you go back to your start project, and if you look at your z-axis, it'll say 15. Okay, that's not a problem. We work from that. Okay. Then what you would do then, because we've moved the machine, you go over to your X and Y and Z. Okay, 0 both your X and Y. That's zeroed now. Okay, so we know that that is, we can pick that up at any time. If we wanted to make it slightly bigger, because you're only relying on your eye to give you that centre. Even though there's a centre punch there, you could be slightly out, so it gives you the ability to move that, fine tune it. Okay, but I always touch off, and I know where to start from there. So we know now that we are on the offline controller. It will say 15 for the 15 millimeters for the Z axis. Okay, I always like to start off in what I call a corner, if there is a corner. Okay, hold it in the corner so you know what you're doing. Okay, and the first thing we do, switch the machine on. Okay, so the machine's running. Always air of safety, fingers away from the cutter. Never put your fingers in front of it, always away. Okay, and you keep control of this pattern with your material securely fastened down either by clamps or screws. Okay, so what we're going to do then, as you remember, the Z said 15 millimeters on it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is take that down to 0, 0, and you can see we're going down 6, 5, and you'll soon hear it just gently when I'm on 0, 0. There we are on 0, 0, and you can just feel it touching the surface. I can hear it. I don't know whether you can by the camera. Okay, and then what we do is, you know that's 0, 0. What you would do then is look at your 0, 0 and take it down a millimeter, holding it firmly, and I use my MPG. Okay, take that down to a millimeter. So you've plunged in a millimeter on that. Remember what I said, always against the cut. Okay, okay, so you can see, you can follow that round, and if you wanted to leave a groove in that shape, you could do quite easily. So we know we've taken that down a millimeter. Okay, now I was saying to you before, if you wanted to take that pocket out, then what you would do, if you were doing an insert, do it manually. Okay, I'm not going to do it all because I'm just showing you what you do. Okay, it's nice and easy. You get to know the feel of your cutter. If you're clever enough, you can work to a line. Okay, now you can see that has actually taken it out. So if you're going to do an insert, you go to the depth that you want to do an insert. Okay, or inlay, whichever you want to do. So then what I'll do, put it back into the corner, take it down another millimeter. Okay, watching your offline controller, I'm down now to 2 millimeters. Okay, okay, you see that? So we are now plunging right the way through. I'm going to take this back up now because it's pointless going any further. And the beauty about when you're working both with the MPG and the offline controller is, I know I've gone down 2 millimeters, So in actual fact, if I wanted to go for my lunch, I could lift the cutter up, turn the cutter, the router off, leave the CNC on, go for my lunch, come back, start the router up again, and I know I've left it in that position. I can go, but you're up against the pin, so it doesn't make any difference. You can actually go back down to your 2mm, add another millimetre, and you're back going where you want to go. Whereas you couldn't just stop the program, you'd have to, if you're using a CNC, you'd have to switch the router off and just leave it set where it is, okay? Because you wouldn't pick the program up, you'd have to pause it, okay? So in that case, you would have to pause your cutter in the job. Okay, so I've done that. I'm going to switch this off a moment because I want to show you something else. So right, what I'm going to do now is take this up out of the way, and you only need it to take it up out of the way. You'll know by your offline controller how much you have to lift it up in order to get your pin out. That pin is out, okay, but I know on there I've gone 7mm back up. So if I wanted to go from 0, 0, if I wanted to go back down to my original cut, I'd just pop it in another. If I wanted to do that one with the timber material on, that's how it's following, you can see that. I would just drop that back down to 0, 0 and start another plunge cut, okay? Now just empty that out. You can see that there, it's cut out and it's followed it in, and it's not strayed because you're not taking a great deal off for it to grab. You could just go round and round till you're through, and you would know using your offline controller that if, when you're getting, this is 12mm thick by the way, this material, when you're getting down to 12mm, then do it very, very finely, because what you'll find out is, and what I tend to do is, I take it so that it just plunges through, and you'll know it starts to plunge through because a different change in the tone, and you'll be able to see it plunge through. And when you get to a certain spot, okay, just leave that little bit, okay, because what majority of the time is what will happen is that piece in there becomes loose as you plunge through, okay. So what I tend to do is go around and I leave it to a last bit and just leave a little bit attached, and because you're probably only leaving 1/2mm on, you can then take your cutter out and then just trim that with a Stanley knife. A lot of the time the part inside doesn't even it stays where it is, it just rattles around, but you've just got to be careful that becomes loose, okay. And that's what I do, is I tend to do it on the long side. What I'll do is I'll go right round, start off in probably somewhere near where I want. I'll just put it back in, show you what I mean. So we're going right the way through. I'd probably go to about there, okay, take it down so you cut through, and then I would move around like that until I get near to the point, and then I would stop, lift the machine out, lift the router out, and then you've got a little piece of material that's holding that inside, and then just trim that through with a Stanley knife, okay. If you're taking it out by a pocket like that, it doesn't matter because you'll have no material, you'll have very little material there. Right, so I've lifted it out, gone for my lunch, and I want to come back and start off where I've left off. So just simply, whereas you couldn't do this with your CNC, you'd have to leave it, as I was saying, you'd have to leave the cutter inside the material and pause it, turn the spindle off, and then go for your lunch, come back, do whatever you're doing, and then you'd have to unpause it. But you've chances that anything can happen when you connect to the computer and you're pausing it, or even, dare I say. Right, so we're back in, want to carry on, okay. You look at your offline controller and we know we've come down 7.1, okay. So you will just take it back down and take it back to 0, 0, which is easy to do. Back to 0, 0, and we knew we'd gone down 2 mil, if you remember. So what we do is set the spindle running. Okay, then you would take it down to what it were originally at, which was 2 mil. We want to go down another mil, so we would run it down to 3 mil, minus 3. So we're at 3 mil, okay. And you would simply work the pin again, okay. Down another millimetre. That's 4 mil, okay. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean by when we're going to cut through. If you can imagine, this is near the bottom and the offline controller is saying 11 mil or 11.5 when you're getting near it, then what I tend to do is I would go around to that part there, okay. Sometimes I'm putting a pencil mark on. I would go down so I go through. So say we've gone through and we know we're through the timber now. We're through the face of the timber on the other side. Okay, I would work that round that way. Like so. Round there. And then when you're coming up to where you plunged in, I sometimes leave a pencil mark, as I say. I would stop there. And then what I would do is bring the cutter out. And I'll show you in a minute. Take it back up so it clears. Switch your spindle off, wait while it stops, take your pin out, and then I'll show you what you see. Okay, and you leave, I hope you can see that, a little tag in there. You can just see that there in the bottom. That will hold that part on. You just nip that off with a Stanley knife, okay, or a sharp chisel, so that keeps that from floating about in there as you punch through. Okay, now that's from stopping the machine and continuing after you've done something else. All right, so then, and even if you actually switch the machine off because you don't finish your project for whatever reason, and you switch it off, you can still go back to it, because all you would do is your machine, when you switch on, will be set as it is. Go to your X and Y, zero them off again, and then that's never moved, and then all you would do is lift your Z-axis up. You know, on your last cut you went down, on this occasion was 4 mil, so you would just touch off again on top of your material. Once you've touched off, you would go down the 15, and then you go down another 4. That takes you to the surface of where you started, and you can continue again. It's really, really simple. There's nothing like in depth about using your offline controller and your MPG. It's just so easy to look at the figures, and it's accurate as well. Okay, now another feature is I've lifted that out now, I've cleared it. Say that this here has the pattern here has a curved surface on, okay, and we want to take this off to that curved surface. All right, so we're going to work not in like a pocket, we're going to work on like a profile. All right, so you can still do that. Okay, so you'd set that running. We know where we are on the offline controller, so we would take that down because you're well clear of the material. Take that down to 0, 0. Right, we're at 0, 0 now. Switch the machine back on. Okay, and then all you would simply do is take that down a millimetre again, or whatever depth you feel comfortable at operating. And all you would do then is keep the pin keep your material there up against the pin, as you can see, and then you just simply okay. Okay, so you've put a rebate in there, but you're actually going to trim this off, so you would take that down another millimetre. We're down to 2 millimetres now, up against the pin. Okay, and if that is actually the exact contour of that profile, okay, so then we do another millimetre. I'm only going to go down to the same depth, 4 mil. Okay, we're on 4 mil now, up against the pin, firmly down, fingers away, as I was showing you there. I'm just showing you what this is 4 mil, okay, that we're taking off, and as long as you keep it down, I'm taking 4 mil off there, and it's not snatching, so you know, with a better router you'll find out that it's pretty easy to do, okay. You can start off at this side, I'll show you this one, okay. We'll go down another millimetre. Okay, and we'll go down another millimetre. You've got to remember, you are in control of this pattern, okay, so you feed your ability to hold that and feed it into the router, okay, with the fingers away, okay. And as I said before, you can go in this way, bring it back out, or you can go in that way. There's no snatching, and if you need to take more off, you can do like I just have there, okay. Just switch that off. So that is, as you can see there, 5 mil deep, well actually 6 mil deep profile, either in that way, which is the better way to cut, because you're going against the cutter, okay, against the cut there. But it does do it okay going that way. Alright, you'll know your feed rate and the position that you want to feed at by how it's cutting, okay. I can't teach anybody that, I can only show you how I do it safely as well. So we're taking 4 mil off there, that's what I was showing you, how you can, if you're doing a pocket and you've got a better router, you probably could go down depth of 4 mil and take, okay. Now what I want to show you now is just clear some of that away, just put that in, okay. Now if I want to cut that shape out, then obviously because you're working on the outside of your pattern, that what you want, if you wanted that piece of timber inside there, would have to be bigger by 6 mil all the way around, okay, because you are cutting, the pin is actually in, so you'd end up with 6 mil off each side face, okay. So it has to be bigger in order to give you the size you want. I'll show you this, pop that in there, okay, and then start off wherever you're going to start off, nice and slow. Remember, you're coming around the corner there, so keep yourself pressed up against the pin, don't let it move away from the pin, nice and slow. Once you've got that initial cut into it, the pin's in a groove, so to speak, you'll know where you're going then. okay, and then round, and that's how you do a shape profile, okay, or a pocket, but give you a profile of what you want, okay. But as you can see there, that's followed that piece of timber underneath, and that's just rough cut. So as I say, it has its purposes. You'll probably never have to use it, but if you need to use it, I've shown you how to do it safely with the jig and pin, okay. Using the offline control MPG, you could just use the offline controller to jog it up and down, but I like the MPG because you can watch the screen, okay, and that's not even connected to a PC. That's doing what I've shown you with the mortise and tenons, the haunch mortises, and the jig and pin now, okay. And obviously with the fence system, you can actually use it for rebaiting, many profiling on an edge, and the beauty about this as well, the jig and pin, is I'm just going to show you another feature which is pretty good really, if you wanted to cut circles, okay. So I'll just show you that. Right, another feature I want to show you is the fact that you can cut circles on it, okay. So say this is just a scrap piece of timber, it's nothing. I've put a 6mm hole in the centre, okay, and I know that'll fit over my pin, okay. Alright, I mark the centre, and say for instance I want to do a 80mm circle, okay, or 160mm diameter circle, but I wanted it to be 80mm radius, okay. So then what I would do is, we know they're in the centre there, is I move the x-axis over, okay, and just move it over. I've got a tape measure on the centre, okay, you'll see that I hope, and I know that that cutter face there, just for roughly, that's all, is roughly 80mm from the centre. So that's going to give me a circle of 80mm times twice, 160mm diameter, okay. I'm working on 80mm radius. Right, let's move that back. Let's check that again. Yep, that's okay. Just move it a little bit more. Put it back to the Z axis, okay, and then I would take it down. So it's, I know that's touching there now. I can, if I wanted to, I could just zero that off, okay. Go back to that project, go to my Z and just zero that, okay. That's 0 0. So if I wanted to, I could just lift that up now, and I've lifted it up 2.5mm, okay. Set my spindle running, okay, and I'm gonna, with this I find it better to do a what I can say is a you'll feel it anyway, I go anti-clockwise in direction, okay. So then I'm on my Z, I go down to my 0 0, and I'm going to go in just to show you 5mm, okay. Take that back up. Now as you can see, switch that off, that's given me a perfect circle, okay. So and as I said before, if you want that inside there exactly 80 millimeters, okay, then I know for a fact that when I started that off, if you check that is roughly, that's, well, it's bang on 80 mil radius, so that'll give me a diameter of 160. Okay. And that's another feature of that, cutting circles. Right, well, that's conclusion of the video really. That's so on this little with the jig and pin. I hope you all understood where I was coming from with it. Is you can pocket out, you can profile out, or you can profile edge. Okay, simply by creating the pattern in the first place, using that as the base pattern, securing your material that you want to use on top, however you do it, just make sure it's safe, and then work around, okay, as I've shown you, and you'll end up with perfect profile inside, pocket wise. You can take out or outer edge, okay. And the other feature is cutting circles. Cuts them perfectly. You just keep going down and down till this becomes punched through, and you could leave a couple of tags on. How I showed you, you can bring the tags just to one to hold it, or you can do two by lifting the actual cutter up at a point, okay, and then plunging back in, lift the cutter back up, back round, plunge back in, and lift the cutter back up, and that will leave you a tag. It'll come through in every other part, but it will leave a tag on either side, or just one tag, whichever you choose to do. I nearly always just do one tag, but give it a good tag that it can't swing either way. Okay, so that's another feature of using the machine as an overhead router. So we've touched on, with all the videos, we've touched on overhead router with a fence system, so you can rebate, you can put an edge mold on, just using it like a router table, but except your router's above. We've used it for cutting tenons, we've used it for cutting haunch tenons, we've used it for cutting mortises, and we've used it for cutting haunch mortises, okay. And you've seen how good they are, how good a fit they are, how accurate they are, and you've seen jig and pin now, okay, and cutting circles. And what you've got to remember as well is you can't just, like with the circle there, once you've cut the circle and you've taken the surplus material away, if you keep that like you were doing a small tabletop, I mean obviously you're limited to by the size of your machine, but on my Pro machine, you know, I can get, there's no limit really to the size, only about the size of the room that I get, but I can do big circular tabletops, and if I want to put a mould on the edge of that, then you put a moulding cutter in, and then all you would do is move your x-axis in bit by bit and down in order to give you that mould, and you would just turn it round and that will put the mould on the edge of the pattern, okay, or your finished material. So I hope that's helped you, and it's explained how versatile this machine is and what you can accomplish by just adapting and using the machine in another manner. That's as an overhead router, fixed overhead router, and it's quite safe. But always remember, and I say it in all my videos, they don't grow back on, so you keep them out of the way, and don't try and force too much material off, because that's when you get problems. It doesn't matter how much you take off each time, if it's a little bit, because you just get through it eventually, but take the amount off that's safe to take off. Okay, and always safety glasses, and if you're creating a lot of dust, extraction. I've none on here at the moment because I couldn't show you actually doing it, so I always wear, well, I always put extraction on. I always have a dust mask on, so that's showing the feature of a fixed overhead router, all the features that I can possibly think of. All right, in the comment section, let me know if you've used anything like this before, if you've used or utilized anything that I've shown you. Please, I'd be interested, and your views on it, because we're all here to learn. And at the end of the day, it is a hobby machine. It's nothing more than a hobbyist machine. There's a vast difference to £4,000 on my Pro machine to what this cost. Okay, even with the add-ons, there is a big difference. Please use it within its limitations. Don't try and push the machine beyond that, because that's when accidents happen or you'll break the machine. Okay, so right, that's end of the video now. So give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Don't forget notification, hit that notification for my next video. And my actual, I can tell you what my next video is going to be. My next video is something that I've ordered from Temu again, and it's a little electric screwdriver, and there were an offer on with it, and I was buying some clothing for my holidays, and because I'd bought some clothing, it said that I could have this little screwdriver for X amount of pounds. So I thought, yeah, see what it's like. Is it any good? So it'll only be a short video, but it is an unboxing, and it's arrived today, so that's my next video. So until then, as I always say, be safe and be careful. It means a lot to me to know that you're working safely, and until next time, bye for now.